Recording in progress.
Okay, Mayor, we're ready to go.
Thank you. I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That was the first time we've done this in quite a long time. Next is roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember McCardle.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
And Councilmember Sonmore asked to be excused.
Move to excuse Councilmember Sonmore.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? She is excused. Next on our agenda is a public comment. Do we have any public comments?
Let me unmute here. Thank you, Mayor. No one here is here present in the chambers. If anyone in the audience would like to speak tonight, you have 5 minutes. Please use the hand raise tool in Zoom. Would anybody in the public like to speak to the council tonight? Going once? Twice? Okay, Mayor, no public comment tonight.
Thank you. So on the consent calendar, who would like to? Councilmember McCardle?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the consent calendar items A, B, and C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is accepted. Next is the council liaison reports, and I'm going to just start at one end. Which end should I start at? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Let the record show she likes me the most. Kidding. This is a long one, so I thought I'd start off with a little bit of humor because you're going to be sitting for a little while. I actually missed my first council meeting in 3 years, and so I didn't get a chance to report, so I'll just give the highlights of that particular one, and then I'll use this session to share what I've also been doing. So I just wanted to be clear, I was able to make it to the Snohomish County and City's dinner back on the 19th. I joined many of my colleagues here. That was our first time back together. I won't repeat that. I'm sure they told you how awesome that was to be together. And the only other one that I'll also give from that I think is important from where I sit is I had the opportunity to participate in Edmonds College's Memorial Day service. I was going to do the building of the Boots to Books monument, excuse me, but we had to switch it up. If you recall, that was a horrible week in this country, and so we switched it up. Instead, we went with a Walt Whitman poem, and I read it just like that, the tongue-tied. That said, let's move into what I've been up to for this latest one, which is, I will parlay that to say on the 8th, although I didn't participate, it was my event, literally, and wanted to thank the council for showing up to our VOA Western Washington Legislative Appreciation Breakfast. We deeply appreciate all of you and the work that you have been doing for these past couple years. Wanted to acknowledge that. Coffee with the City was on the 8th. This is probably a good time to point out that this was a really long month after a 5-month Monday, so it's going to sound like a lot was going on, but it really was all jam-packed. That said, I did participate online in Passport to 2044, which was put on by PSRC back on the 15th. I made it to our study session on the 16th. I actually volunteered at Edmonds College's graduation. On the 17th, congratulations to all of our residents. Saw quite a few of you come through the line. That was awesome, onward, upward. On the 18th, I went up to Everett and went out to Snohomish and participated in the NAACP's Juneteenth event. That was followed up the next day by one of my events also that I participated in and also helped organize. And thank you to the council who were also able to make it out. And that was the Level Lift Every Voice Legacy Juneteenth event, which the city also participated in. Thank you very much for that support. I think this one is the most important of them all. I did a blood donation on the 26th. On the 28th, I participated online with the state of Linwood and strongly encourage us to consider going down that road. I think that would be interesting to do a state of Mountlake Terrace. That same day, also participated in Heroes Cafe. Heroes Cafe, I bring that into this space because they're actually sponsoring one of our veterans here in Mountlake Terrace. So that's why I'm bringing that one in, even though that's technically regional and also based out of Linwood. But wonderful experience if you're able to make it. You do not have to be a veteran just to be in the space, but it is about resources. That night, speaking of resources, thank you to Maverick Cares, which is Crazy Moose Casino to those of us here in Mountlake Terrace. They gave out backpacks filled with food and activities for our residents and our students here in the area. I think that went very well. And then I'll just round that out with the RFA and the study session on the 30th. And then, of course, I was at the 3rd of July awesome experience. And I will leave it there. Thank you very much. End of my report.
Thank you.
Mayor, I think you need to unmute.
Oh, let's just go to the other end and have Councilmember Murray give her report.
Thank you, Mayor, and I feel less neglected down here now. I appreciate it. All right, well, mine will be shorter because I was out of town for a week at the beginning of the last period between our last meeting, but attended on June 30th, attended a Bridging the Gap event, so it was a community conversation about Juneteenth and the 4th of July held at Edmond Center for the Arts. It was a really good event. They partnered with the Herald and a bunch of other community organizations, and that is available online. Would encourage folks who are maybe interested in learning more. They also have a bunch of resources on their website in partnership with Snohomish or Snow Isle Libraries. But so the website is CRANK, it's CRANK, the letter D, up.co. And that was Alicia Crank who had hosted that. And it was just a great reminder of when you have space in your community, the wonderful things that your community members can bring forward. And so it's a really nice opportunity to come together in community and learn and celebrate a little bit. Next night was our work session on the 1st, and then also attended the 3rd of July event. And just big, appreciation to staff, City Manager Scott, who saved the day and swooped up my kids and I as we were hiking towards the park, and to Jeff and his whole team, and to Virginia. It was a wonderful event, and it was really nice to see as the evening went on and the rain settled down. It was nice to see so many folks settle in and enjoy the fireworks, and really looking forward to more of that as we move forward this summer. So I think that is it for my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. June 21st, attended the Arts Commission, where they're beginning a process to get ready for the art show in September. Then on the 30th, we had our work study session, and of course, 3rd of July celebration down at Ballinger Park. And that's in my report.
Thank you. Councilmember McCardle.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 21st, I attended the city's Finance Committee meeting where we further discussed the pros and cons of cash versus accrual accounting. And at some point, we will bring that in front of the full council for a discussion to see if we want to stay with accrual or move into cash-based accounting. I was slated to attend the AWC conference from the 21st to the 24th, but was sidelined due to COVID. And, excuse me, on the 30th, I attended the city's Regional Fire Authority meeting as well as the workshop. And then on July 1st, I had my monthly meeting with the city manager. And then on the 3rd, I was at the city's firework event. And just want to pass on my appreciation to city staff for taking that on and making sure that happened. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem All.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So going back all the way to, since we missed our last report, June 2nd was our HART meeting, Housing Affordability Regional Task Force. The 7th and 8th, we had our board and commission interview committee. Then on the 14th, had South County council presidents and mayor pro tem talking about regional issues and issues each of our councils are facing. On the 15th, had Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee meeting. As a reminder, we increased the dues one time for 20% to be able to cover our regional costs. But then it'll go back to the regular increase of whatever, 0.5%, 3.5% or something, I think it was. Then on the 21st to the 24th, had the AWC conference. On the 23rd, had the PSRC Operating Committee meeting. Also on the 23rd, following the Operating Committee, I had the PSRC Executive Board meeting. On the 16th and the 30th, had our council work session. Then earlier today, we had our city manager, mayor and I met with city manager for our monthly meeting. And on the 3rd, we have had the July 3rd celebration. I also want to say thank you to staff for making it all come together. It's been said before. I'll quickly say it again. You guys did a fantastic job. It's amazing watching it all come together. And we saw it and recognized the role that you played in making it happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so for my report, I'm going to start way back in June 7th. June 7th and 8th, I was also on the committee to interview for the boards and commissions. And on the 8th, at 7 in the morning, I attended the VOA breakfast. And what a fantastic turnout and event that was. Thank you very much, Councilmember Woodard, for that, even though you could not attend. And then later that morning, I attended the Snohomish County County Council to testify for the Board of Health to go to the county. On the 9th of June, at another 7 o'clock in the morning meeting, I attended the Shoreline State of the City speech. And boy, to find out what's happening in that city and what they're doing, getting ready for light rail, it's fascinating. On the 14th, I attended the Board of Health meeting, and on the 15th, I attended an AHA meeting, which is the Affordable Housing Alliance for Affordable Housing. And then on the 16th, I attended the 911 SNOCO meeting. And then on the 19th, I attended a Juneteenth event over at Esperance Park in Edmonds, which is really right outside of Mountlake Terrace. And that was a fantastic event. And then on June 20th to the 24th, I attended the AWC conference in Vancouver, and the housing issues were the hot topics in that conference. On the 25th, I attended the Amateur Radio Ham Radio Field Day at Lake Ballinger, and they were amazed that I showed up for a second year in a row. Apparently, nobody outside of Edmonds in mayors have ever shown up, and they really do a lot of good for the area, because if an emergency happens, they're the ones that we count on. On the 27th, I was a speaker at on a panel at the Edmonds Roundtable with Nicholas Smith, and the subject was mayor council versus council city manager, pros and cons. On the 29th, I attended the Conservation Futures meeting, and we had 5 projects, and that was a little bit about 4.7 million, and we gave all of it to all 5 projects because they were all very, very deserving, and we had the money. We didn't use the whole pot. We have a lot left over. On June 30th, I went to the Board of Health building to say goodbye to Dr. Spitters, because it would be his last day. And he's been such a fantastic person for the Board of Health to have during the pandemic. He was just wonderful. And we all loved him. So thank you very much, Dr. Spitters, for your service. And after that, I went to the Master Builders Elected Official Seafood Fest. And Dave Summers got the award for helping with housing on that one. And on the 3rd, I attended the 3rd of July fireworks, and I'm just really happy to see our attendance. And even early on, the people that put the tents up and sat through the rain, and they were going to wait until 10 o'clock to see the fireworks. It was just amazing. They wanted to picnic in the rain, and they actually did. So, and they came from all over the place. The people that we talked to were from Arlington, and I understand that they came from other cities far away. And that is the end of my report. Okay. Next is the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I too would like to thank staff for their work on the 3rd of July event. That includes Virginia Clough, Jeff Betts, Ken Courtmanch, as well as all the police staff and public works staff. I know that there are quite a few of them at the end of the event, collecting garbage cans, cleaning up, but terrific event, great to see crowds again. And speaking of seeing the public again, Tour de Terrace will be coming up. Please let myself or the city clerk know if you would like to help staff city booth on either Saturday, July 23rd or Sunday, July 24th. We rotate shifts, so you can stay as long or as short as you would like. Some staffing updates. I had mentioned previously, new finance director will be starting on July 18th. Janella Lewis comes to us from the city of Linwood. We have an offer, and I believe it's been accepted for a deputy city clerk. 2 officers have completed field training, and then management analyst Joey Worthen, I learned today, has been appointed to the Criminal Justice Training Commission's board that reviews the decertification of police officers. This follows from her work in certifying police departments throughout the state. So congratulations to her. Then a state grant for recruitment and retention of recreation employees. This is from the DCYF, you may recall. Speaking about this with Jeff Betts a few weeks ago, it has come through. So we'll be bringing you a budget amendment sometime in the next couple of months to recognize that spending, as well as allocating some of our ARPA dollars to match or provide some complementary dollars to that program. And then we are working to get City Hall open to the public. We are in the final stage of enabling it to open. While there's a number of items remaining for the contractor to complete, staff's been working on signage and procedures. Some of the challenges we've had beyond our abilities internally have been the HVAC system not working, some of the security locks internal to the building not working, and light switches not necessarily working. So we have that worked out. And so that is my report, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. You referenced 2 officers. Was one of those officers 4-legged?
No. So I guess 3. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Yeah. New drug canine is, I believe, completing certification. Harley is the name of the dog, and if you get a chance, goofball of a dog. He loves everybody, so. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just for a bit of trivia, she finished on Wednesday, which was her birthday.
I did not know.
So talk about awesome.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. So next on our agenda is the follow-up discussion on the 2021 fourth quarter financial report. Everybody has a copy of that.
Good evening once again, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. You may recall that at your May 16th meeting, we provided an overview of how we ended 2021 financially, and you did not have a lot of time to review that report, so we rescheduled it for this evening. That provided you an opportunity to go through the report in detail. I've also provided you with a paper copy this evening in case you would like to take any notes. One thing I would like to point out, on page 3 of 27, you'll see that highlighted yellow line. We highlight that so that you're looking at the line you want to keep track of, and that's your ending fund balance. That's how you are ending the year in the general fund, which pays for the majority of the city services outside of utilities and street maintenance. You will see that in 2021, we adopted a budget that was forecast to end the year at $3.7 million. We updated that forecast, revised it to 8.1, given all the conditions in the economy, in particular online sales, where sales taxes coming into the city for deliveries in Mountlake Terrace. But at the end of the fourth quarter, there to the right, you'll see that we ended with $11.5 million. That does include approximately $3 million of ARPA funds that we received in our first tranche, they call it, from ARPA, but you are doing well financially.
Does anyone have any? Can I add? Oh, I was going to just, are we on the Ballinger Clubhouse lease, they're not paying during the pandemic?
That's correct. During the period of time that they weren't able to have events to generate revenue, we have waived or suspended their lease. As they start to reopen, we'll reinstitute that. That was part of a resolution the City Council adopted early in the pandemic to be able to do that.
Yeah, I remember it now. Thank you. So did you have something that you wanted to ask, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If nobody else has anything, I did have two quick things. So, you covered half of one, which was the ARPA dollars, pointing out that the ARPA dollars in the ending fund balance included $3 million of that, but we are expecting another $3 million. When does that hit?
It should be coming this summer, in the next couple of months. We did receive word from the state auditor and Treasury that it would be coming, I think in July, but I'll give it to the end of August just in case.
Okay, so that'll be added to the unreserved fund until, ending fund balance until we expend that $6 million for ARPA funding.
Correct.
Great, okay, so really we ought to, in looking at our ending fund balance, we ought to take out just $3 million out of that 11.5. And so that's a good, healthy ending fund balance, well done. We've, and in looking at the revenues, everything seems to be in good shape overall, which is much better than, coming through the pandemic, much better than we expected as we've had those discussions previously. And at the same time, keeping our spending in line, so appreciate that, the work that's been done to make that happen. And leave us in good position. I did note a couple of areas that were a little short, not huge deals, but just wanted to highlight, I guess, or question what it was with Snow Isle and other intergovernmental, which is only $30,000, a little under $30,000 difference. And then the total fines and forfeitures, which was less than half of the total expected funding that came in for that, and just interested in what happened there, and why those fell short, and if we expect that to continue in the future, or need to be thinking about that for the next budget cycle. Right. I guess actually this is halfway through this 2-year budget cycle, so do we need to worry about it more this year?
Correct. This fall you'll be going through the budgeting process, and the element associated with fines and forfeitures is the reduction in traffic-related instances in crime early in the pandemic. And that continued through the end of last year to some degree. It's starting to ramp up again. You may recall the police chief's report for last year that we started to return to normal, but you did see a dip when people started working remotely, not out on the road, so yeah, safer. Your other question was about Snow Isle. I don't know that one off the top of my head, so I'd like to get back to you on it if I could.
And like as pointed out, it's only a $30,000 difference. It wasn't a huge piece or percent of the budget overall. Just was curious about it. But the bigger issue, it sounds like on the the bigger dollar amount, which was the fines and forfeitures, we expect that to return back to normal. We're seeing, based on what we're seeing in trends right now, everything's going back to the normal. Therefore, the budget, what we budgeted for the rest of this year in our budget cycle, we expect that we'll likely be back to the same budget. And
It's trending in that direction. I think as part of the budgeting process, the chief and his staff will review those trends. How much is remote working reducing traffic? And how does that play into it? They're always looking at trends like that. So we'll have a better idea of what they're seeing this fall.
okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember McCardle.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager, I have a question on, it's the Street Construction Fund. It's on page 23 of 27. Just the, if you could just give us an update of the TBD license fee, that Transportation Benefit District. I know we put it in place years ago, and we've never really talked much about it since then, and I noticed, you know, we didn't, in the 2021 adopted budget and the revised, there are no numbers, and then the actual shows up at 338. So just kind of give us a brief update on that and how that's working. Is something we want to revisit or can revisit, or where that money's going again, just to remind us?
Sure. So the Transportation Benefit District was adopted by the council a number of years ago. It's a $20 fee on license tabs that is used for street construction and those related projects. The intent there was to use those dollars towards the Main Street project in particular to start with. However, we had been calling it TBD license fee. However, the Transportation Benefit District was dissolved a number of years ago with the city absorbing it. So I think what you're seeing there is we removed it from our financial software, that name, because we weren't calling it, but when we went back to run this report, it came back out as the TBD. So that's what you're seeing there. Finance has been able to automate more of these reports, so they're coming directly out of the financial software, and I think that's a legacy issue with that. Does that make sense?
So just clarity, did I hear you say correctly, we dissolved it and absorbed it, so it's no longer a $20 fee with your tabs, or it still is?
There's still a fee. When the state adopted the legislation to enable this program, Transportation Benefit Districts, they enabled cities to set up a separate entity to collect this fee, and that entity could be the city council as the board, but by having it a separate entity, the public was reassured it was only going to be used for streets. It wasn't going to be absorbed into the general fund. A few years after that, the legislature decided, well, if it's the city council that's the board in all these cases, why don't we just allow the cities to absorb the TBD? They still have to track the dollars and show they're being spent on street construction. So the Transportation Benefit District is dissolved, the $20 remains.
So just moving forward with our documentation forms, will we continue to see TBD license fee so we can track the dollars on that, or will that be labeled something different that we would need to know about?
We'd probably follow direction from the state auditor on how to report that, so it's likely to remain something similar to the license tab fee.
Okay.
It might be TBD license fee, but it'll be that separate line item because we have to track it for auditing purposes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. And similar kind of question to Councilmember McCardle. On page 5, in looking at the expenditures and other uses for operating expenditures, so street maintenance, we came in at 52% of our budget for last year. I'm sure we have lots of residents that would argue that we could have spent that money. I guess could help us understand maybe why we didn't spend that money, and did we move that additional money forward into our plan for this year, and will we be expending those funds?
That's correct. So the dollars will stay in there for the most part, and it is subsidized typically by the general fund to a degree. I'm going to say the reason that we haven't spent as much is because we had plans to hire additional maintenance employees in the street unit. Streets are maintained by 2 full-time employees and then supplemented with seasonal employees. We haven't been able to recruit seasonal employees over the last couple of years, so we've added full-time staff. But it took a while to bring them on board, so we budgeted for more work, more staff, more equipment, but we just didn't have a chance to spend it all this year, or last year. First year of the budget.
Do we know if we're more in line with our projections for this year?
I do not know at this point. A lot of the street maintenance occurs spring, summer, and fall. Winter, if we get a lot of snow, that's that expense. So you typically won't see it in the first quarter of the year simply because vegetation isn't growing, so it's not being cut and mowed down. It's too wet to be striping. So apparently it didn't snow either. I just heard bird in my ear. So we didn't have to spend on salt and all of that. De-icer.
Cheers to that. I did just see new stripes all over the place, so that's exciting. So, okay, thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is the adoption of the amended salary schedule ordinance. Do you want to go over there? Did you finally get in? Did you finally get in?
Not to my email. Keep accessing.
I wonder if I can.
Were you logged in before?
Yes.
Yeah, see how it wasn't. So if you log out and try to log in, you won't get it.
I don't want to log out knowing I can't get back in. We have to keep going to ours. Why is she saying this to us? Oh. We don't need any of these.
Water in.
Sorry about that. I was unable to find the file. It's gone into some mysterious cloud. I wanted to demonstrate the impact, as you requested, on Thursday night's discussion of an increase in wages for associate planner, senior planner, 2 commanders, department directors, and HR manager. Be about 7.5%. It starts with the council's discussion a couple months ago about recruiting and retaining staff for development services. We did a salary survey and we found that engineering is okay, our engineers, but planners were below market. So starting with an associate planner, which is an entry-level position, we found that they were below market and needed an increase. However, if you increase that position, then we would typically increase their supervisor's position, the senior planner. Well, if that bumps up, there's a ripple effect to the Community and Economic Development Director. And they are in the same group as other department directors, and that's how that kind of works. Also, HR manager was well below market, and Community Relations Director below market, and with certain senior police command staff getting ready to retire, we wanted to be in a position where we can recruit for those senior positions and address that now. As I'm sure you're aware, I've told the chief he can retire in 10 years, so that's what I'm looking for, to get started early. So we take a look at the impact of these increases in your 6-year financial forecast. The projected, or the total cost was about $227,000 the first year. And then we increased that by 3% each year. We added that to your financial forecast. And as you can see on page 3 of your year-end 2021 update, with a fund balance of $11.5 million, or reduced by ARPA of $3 million, still at $8.5 million, and it had a negligible effect on the budget, on the forecast. About 85% of the salary is paid out of the general fund. The remainder come from utilities and streets and those funds, including capital improvement. So 85% of the cost rests there. I wish I could find that PowerPoint so I could display to you the impact of it over time. It remained roughly $250,000 a year, increasing over time by roughly 3% to be conservative. I took a look at our 6-year financial forecast so we could take a very conservative, low look at this. So I didn't use the 11.5 million that we ended 2021 with. I used our original projection of the adopted budget for 2021 of 3.7 million that you'll see on that page 3, and it still didn't have an effect after 6 years. So bottom line, the impact can be absorbed by the forecast. Whether you're using our current financial forecast with an ending fund balance of 3.7 million or an updated forecast using the 11.5 you're looking at tonight, even when you remove the ARPA dollars, still above the forecast. Now, there are other positions that will be reviewed this fall as part of the budgeting process. That's typically when we do this. We review salaries for non-union employees during the budgeting process every 2 years. As I mentioned on Thursday, about half our employees are covered by unions. Another quarter of the employees, full-time equivalents, are at the Recreation Pavilion, and they are covered by the recruitment and retention program that is being funded by the DCYF grant I mentioned and some ARPA dollars for recruitment and retention. So you're talking about 25% of our employees that we will look at this fall as part of the budgeting process and bring that forward as we do that. You also asked about open positions in the city. Now that we've got finance filled, we are still, I believe, looking for a senior planner. We instead brought in 2 associate planners till we can get that senior planner filled. And we have a city engineer position to fill. And that is it here at City Hall for vacant positions. So we continue to recruit. So if you know anybody, please let us know. Working hard on that. We're supplementing the work, or filling the work of the city engineer with a contract position through RH2 Engineering. They provide development review services. They're also working on our development standards so that when a developer is out there working on a project or drawing up a project, they can go through a book of city standards to know exactly how wide a street should be, how wide a sidewalk should be. It's like a catalog of design standards. Then when we get those plans, we just go through the book and check off that their plans match those standards. It's quite it's a time saver for both the city and the development community. So that's what we've got the consultant from RH2 doing now, and that is it, unless I missed any positions, but I don't think so. So city engineer, senior planner. This is what we got. Financial impact, relatively negligible. So,
All right, Councilmember Murray has a question.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Appreciate the report. Some additional questions, I guess, that have come up, between now and today. So you mentioned we hired 2 associate planners instead of a senior planner. So are we then is that going to result then in an addition of an additional staff member once we get that role filled?
correct. And those positions are funded by development activity, and we see that continuing.
Yep.
And so it's offset by the development community's permit fees.
So the 2 roles we have open right now are a senior planner and an engineer. We believe our engineers are paid at a marketable rate, so it's really the senior planner that we're concerned about being in a marketable place from a recruiting perspective, correct?
Correct.
So did we consider perhaps raising just the compensation for that role and then looking at staff holistically as part of this process so we could understand the full financial implications as we made these choices?
Good questions. Yes, we looked at, could we just increase the wages of, we got the coordinator. So also building inspector is vacant. We're contracting for that one too. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
We're not addressing their compensation though, and we didn't
Correct.
review that, correct?
Correct.
So we don't know
HR
if they're
manager-
marketable, right? Okay.
Just a tight market across the board, public and private sector. We did look at simply increasing the salary of the senior planner, and then it can bump up against the director anyway. So oftentimes for non-union or hourly employees, non-hourly employees, if there's compression where a union employee gets an increase in their wage through a contract, and you've got a non-union supervisor, and the non-union supervisor should be 10% above that employee, and this starts to shrink, this gap, then we just take out the lower end of the supervisor's range and just pay them at the high end. And that way you don't need an increase. However, that's not going to work for the senior planner. It's a tough market. We had that position filled for a few months, but we didn't get the quality that we needed. And we just want to be able to market. Also want to be able to really recruit and retain the staff we have. We invest a lot of time into training our staff, and when they disappear after 2 or 3 years, it's a real loss. So
Agreed fully, and I want to make sure that we're talking about compensation and talking about it holistically. I guess, so I'm looking at the analysis, and there's an analysis for the permit specialist and the associate planner, but not the senior planner.
it should be in there. Oh, the associate planner is moving from hourly position to or from an exempt position to hourly. That's that change. Senior planners should be in that memo.
I guess it doesn't share how much below market they are.
I apologize for that. We will address that.
I'm curious because it seems like this role is our immediate kind of need. And so we have all of these ripple effects and understand the need to look at kind of the team more holistically, and that impacts leadership, and recognize kind of all of those, interdependencies. And there's probably additional that ripple continues, right? And we've kind of have chosen some arbitrary, I think, lines and percentages that I'm concerned candidly about making decisions around without, I guess, a more thorough analysis of kind of not only where staff is currently and how we're making compensation decisions, but also the financial implications
Right.
Over the next 6 years. So I guess those are my concerns, and it sounds like maybe we don't have all of those answers tonight. Would that be?
We did provide a spreadsheet on Thursday, and I don't have it in front of me right now. I can go track it down for you.
Yeah. No, maybe this is it.
And you are correct that we're looking at a limited group here. Typically, we would look at everybody during the budget process.
Right.
We were following up on a council request to take a look at it sooner rather than later, and because we're in the midst of recruiting for planners and engineers, city engineer, it seemed a good time to bring it. And if we brought the whole package right now, I was concerned it would be a number that would cause the decision to crash. I agree with you. I prefer to look at it holistically, the whole organization. That's what we do with our union contracts. We cost them out as a unit. Yet, we're in unique times. It's hard to get staff. And when you brought it up, I thank you for doing that. It's very helpful. I understand your concern, though. I truly do.
So looking at retention from a retention standpoint, because we're talking about very limited staff. We're talking about leadership, who we haven't necessarily had retention issues with, although I appreciate their staying with the organization and all of the work that they do. So these are not questions by any means to invalidate the work that they do. And that's a significant increase. I mean, so significantly more than we identified. The permit specialist and the associate planner were below market. So I guess I wanted to, and I tried to bring this up Thursday, I wanted to make sure that I understood the messaging around kind of where we were at and who we chose and what the percentages were. And I don't feel like I could have that conversation and explain that in a way that I would feel good about at this point based on what I know.
Sure. No, thank you. It's a unique circumstance with the permit techs in that they're so new that even if you increase the salary range, they would still be in the same pocket of salary. So they're at the low to middle end. A wage increase is, an increase in the salary band is not necessarily going to move them up. For the planners, it's a good point. Looking at everything, that's our preferred way of doing it. That's how we've done it in the past. I agree that we haven't had turnover in department directors other than our finance director. However, when we sought to recruit our community and economic development director, it took a long time and some personal effort, and we've been fortunate. But cities larger than us that are near here are paying significantly higher, and I need to do everything that you're comfortable with to retain what we have. Yeah.
Thank you. No, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your willingness to answer my questions and work through things with me. I guess where I'm at is that I would be more than happy to address the senior planner on a one-off basis, given we're actively recruiting for that role. And it sounds like there's a recommendation that you feel good about on the table for that role, moving kind of the level of that. And I would be more than happy to discuss using some ARPA funds to get a salary survey done so we could get a compensation strategy and plan in place that helps us to look at staff holistically and make sure that we're equitable as we think about some of these investments in staff moving forward, which I absolutely support making. I just want to make sure that we're not making some places that leave us in a place where we can't make ones that we want to make other places in the very near term. So those would be, I guess, that's where I sit and appreciate all of the time and effort.
I appreciate it too. Your touching on exactly the things that HR Manager Leslie Cho looks at. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, City Manager, for the report again. And as we've been talking about, I mean, we know we need to take action. It's just a matter of taking the right action, making sure that we're doing everything we need to attract and retain talent. I did have some, getting back to the financial forecast, I appreciate the kind of verbal overview that we had, that you provided. And so if I'm adding up the numbers right, it's basically an average of about 250 plus 10,000 per year if you average it out, because it's like $7,500 additional 3% the first year, and then that compounds over the 6-year period. So it gets up to a $310 roughly $1,000 from 250 to 310,000 impact on the financial forecast. I guess what I'm in, and then so that what I was interested in is, and I appreciate that that is a small amount compared to the fact that we have a $8.5 million surplus currently. That's a key word, is currently. And what and that's why I want to see the impact overall, not just this minuscule piece of it, but what is the impact of all the other compounding increases, you know, inflation increases or whatever CPI increases that the budget is forecast to have, and what does that impact on that ending fund balance in 6 years with everything else? So it's not just taking away $8.5 million, so or 250 to up to working its way up to 300,000 over a 6-year period, but it's also the impact of all the other increases of all the other programs and all the others, you know, et cetera. So so that led me to think, okay, so maybe I can add it up in by looking at the financial forecast, our most recent financial forecast, which of course I didn't have with me. So I decided I figured I would go to online and look at what's online. So do you know what the latest financial forecast is that's online?
2001, no, 2000, I believe.
2019.
2019.
2019 to 2024 was the last one that's online. I believe we've had this discussion since then. So we do need to get that updated online. So I guess my point is I still don't have the answers because I wasn't able to pull it up online to what is the overall impact at the end of the day of the total budget, not just the impact of this increase, but what are we looking at in 6 years of minus 1.5 whatever million of this impact total on that whole 8.5 million plus increasing costs of everything else.
Right, right. So we update the financial forecast every 2 years and have that adopted as part of the budget. That's why you're seeing it from 2019, no, 2020 is what it should be on there. I understand why it's not. And so we bring you the annual report so you can check in. How are we matching with that forecast? And ideally, we're ending each year in a position that is as good as or better than what we forecasted. So when it comes to the budget time this fall, department directors come together and we put all we know into a basket of what the increases and projections are going to be. Will there be more fines and forfeitures? What's going to happen with liability insurance? Do we need to add staff? What do we have to offset those costs, like ARPA dollars? And bring those recommendations to you as a balanced budget. And so that's where you see, here's the proposed budget. Here's its impact on a 6-year financial forecast that's been updated. And then you make sure that that budget that you adopt reflects your priorities, your goals, and action plan carrying that out. But we don't update that forecast on a monthly basis. No.
Well,
sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead.
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate we don't update it on a monthly basis, but we do update it on a regular basis. And we should be updating it based on when we have these conversations about any impact to the budget that we're making decisions. So we should have that line item of what that impact is. I want to make a quick note back to when we talk about ARPA dollars. What we should say is ARPA one-time dollars. Every time we talk about ARPA dollars, we need to remember that it's ARPA one-time dollars. And so when we're making decisions on how we're going to spend those ARPA one-time dollars, we need to recognize that we aren't getting those dollars back in our revenue forecasts again in the future. We aren't going to see that continuing to flow. So it's an important reminder. But speaking of the financial forecast, though, and regular updates, when is our next regular update so that we can have some new numbers to look at?
Sure. I believe July 18th, you're going to get your first quarter financial report for this year. And that'll be your next one. No, what we do, we can do it. It's an Excel spreadsheet. We would plug in the ending fund balance for 2021, and that refreshes that forecast carrying into 2022. And that first quarter, we reflect on what you've adopted as your budget, because it's your adopted budget that we look to match up to rather than the financial forecast years out. So we're looking at the close term as best we can more often, if that makes sense.
Right. So I appreciate that. So when we next have our finance discussion when you say later this month. So if we can get the financial forecast and include, based on not just the adopted budget, but what we just are potentially adopting tonight, I guess.
Correct.
So that'll include that will be included in the adopted budget, even though it wasn't. And we're amending the adopted budget with this ordinance tonight.
No.
That's right. Okay, yeah. So that's what I wanted to clarify. I just wanted to make sure that when you talk about the adopted budget, it will include what we potentially adopt tonight, if that's what we do.
Right. So we revised the budget. We amend the first year's budget. In a biennial budget, we revise the second year. I don't know why we use different terms, but that's what the state has. And so when you approve a contract or anything that is different than the adopted budget, we keep a list and we bring it to you every 6 months or so to capture all those budget implications from your actions. So, for example, the construction of City Hall, additional elements of that, above and beyond the original contract, that will be a budget modification to capture that for this year.
Right, and so that's the adopted budget and the revised budget and whatever, right?
Correct.
I just want to make sure that when we get that 6-year financial forecast later this month, it will include what we're looking at right now with a salary.
It will.
Yeah,
You'll see in this spreadsheet, the way we do it is you'll have actual years that have passed. Then you'll have the adopted budget that's officially adopted, then how it was revised by the council, adopting a budget amendment ordinance, and then actually what we saw during that period. Similar to the 6-year financial forecast, we provide a projected 2022 ending fund balance. So we change that to projected to capture what you've done to date and what we've seen in revenues to date. So yes, we'll provide that to you. And I will send you the updated spreadsheet that exists showing the impact on this.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to note that one of the members of the audience has a hand raised, and we passed public comment, but they may have a question on this item before you vote tonight.
So do I let them speak?
We can ask now if they intended to ask a question on this item, or if you would like to discuss first and then call for them.
Okay, let's have them.
Okay. And would you mind pulling your microphone up a little bit? We're not hearing you very well in the audience. Now the hand raise has gone down, so if Zoom user would like to ask a question on this item, there it goes. Okay, I'm going to unmute you. If you could tell the council your name and ask your question. Thank you. Go ahead. Zoom user, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. So I missed the public comment earlier. I tried so hard to dial in to meeting and Zoom calls. Anyways, my name is Shelley Richard, and I am addressing the traffic on 66th Avenue West. I started this in 2019, August of 2019, and I just feel that my neighbors really haven't been heard. We've been kind of just shushed that the traffic going down my road from 228th down south has been just hushed. And I would like something done about this. I live here. Every morning, every night, when I go to work and when I come home, there are people that are right on my tail, and I've went and walked my road. I appreciate the crosswalk. Supposedly the city narrowed the lanes, and none of us have seen that. And we want something done. This is a dangerous stretch of the road, and with the light rail coming in, it's used as a three-way entrance from I-5 both ways, and I don't know what else to do.
Thank you, Shelley. I know I left you a message, as did the city manager, and did you have any follow-up on that?
I did have follow-up from the city manager, which is kind of a comical situation. I was mentioned that maybe we should just have the cops shoot out people's tires. Haha, not very funny. The cops in my area have better things to do than to patrol my neighborhood. If you were to put some flashing lights on the speed limit signs and the crosswalk sign down the road, I think that we could be a lot safer. I had the mayor call me back. This has been going on since 2019, and there's been multiple accidents. I have shown pictures of accidents when we came up to the city council meeting in August of 2019, and it's not safe. The mayor said herself that she has driven past my house, but not during traffic time. So you can come, all of you, sit in my yard and watch it every morning and every night and see what I see. And what is the city going to do? We have money for it. We have money that's going down south of 66 down to 20th. And I want my roads safe. I want my children safe. I want my neighbors' children safe. And the city needs to figure something out. I am tired of fighting with you.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. I've asked the Public Works Director and our traffic engineer to reach out to you to discuss it and also to measure speeds on the road. I will follow up to see where they are in that process.
I want the speed detector put back up. I want this road to be safe. Come and live in my house for a week and see how you feel, okay? There's money in the budget. Do it. Fix it. I'm mad. I'm disappointed in my city. I have lived here for almost 30 years. Do you understand? I mean, am I just supposed to just since 2019. Nobody responded to me. They responded to other people. I was the one that started the whole initiative.
Ms. Richards, I'll follow up with you tomorrow and make sure the Public Works Director speaks to you as well.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess that wasn't about the matter at hand, so returning to the salary ordinance. Thank you, Ms. Richards.
Thank you. So next, oh, I just had that here. Oops. So what, should we just vote on it now?
If I recall,
done?
questions were over, and then I don't think you've had a discussion yet.
All right. So we're going to call the question and then do the discussion. So what are the council's wishes? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you,
Wall?
Madam Mayor. I'll put the motion on the table for discussion. Move to adopt an ordinance amending the 2022 salary schedule.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussion? Well, did you have something to say? Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I kind of put mine in our question section, so I apologize for not following Robert's Rules of Order as well as I probably should, but Councilmember Ryan didn't correct me. So, I guess I just want to make sure that I do state, like, I think we have amazing employees. I think recruiting and retention is incredibly important. I would love for us to look at that holistically, and I think we need to do that in a way that is thoughtful and equitable, and I appreciate the efforts here. I don't discount them. It is hard work and it is not easy work, and I think I mentioned that on Thursday, and I think that's one of the reasons that I would encourage us to partner with somebody who does this for a living. I did that recently at work, and I will tell you, even as somebody who has spent 20 years in HR, like, it is helpful to have somebody who does compensation as their full-time job to help walk through a process and to really ensure that we have a compensation strategy that meets our organizational needs both now and into the future. And so because of that, I can't support this at this time because I think it sets us up to potentially be in a place where we're not able to do what we need to do elsewhere. And so I appreciate the effort. I would be happy to look at just the senior planner if this were to not move forward, to remedy that is a recruiting need that we need to address immediately. And I would be happy to expedite us giving some ARPA funds, putting some ARPA funds towards a salary survey to ensure that we have a path forward that we can then think thoughtfully about. So that is why I won't be supporting the motion on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just wanted to clarify or ask for clarification on the salary survey. Thank you. I think you addressed, and I just want to make sure I'm clear in my mind, you addressed that on Thursday night, we did it internally. We did do a salary survey, or actually the AWC does a salary survey, correct, of cities throughout the state. And then what we did was take from that AWC survey comparable cities of our size. And then that's what we based our range on, our low and high range, to determine where we fall. And that's how we came up with the 7.5% that we're generally overall in those positions that we're looking at. We're short or below market for those positions by 7.5%. But then we also identified that some positions are 10 to 15% and other positions are not.
That's correct. Association of Washington Cities does a salary survey every year with cities listing the majority of positions that cities have, and we use that salary survey not only for our union negotiations to identify what union positions will be compensated with, but also our non-union employees. So we're using the same built-in rationale because at the end of the day, we may choose to include certain positions in certain categories and compensate them the same way, where other cities may have a drastically different philosophy and pay them differently. That's why we take the average of cities to identify the low and
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to follow up and understand both surveys, perspectives, I guess, right? And so so part of it is, if I understand Councilmember Murray is suggesting that we need to contract with a professional that does this for a living. And as city manager, what I recall you mentioning on Thursday is you did address, you mentioned that during your comments that is a possibility. But what happens in that process is that they look at the private, not just cities, other cities, but the private sector, that type of position and what the private sector pays those positions, which is normally more than what the public sector can do. And therefore that creates additional concerns and impacts on the budget. But if I'm understanding it, what Councilmember Murray is suggesting is we need to look at that and understand how our city, how these positions compete with not only the public sector, but also the private sector. That's the additional perspective that a private consultant could bring. Sorry.
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, I mean, so both and, right? I mean, so a compensation consultant can determine who are comparable organizations to compare us against, which would not be the private sector. They could also potentially look at where we're recruiting from, and if we have roles where we're competing with the private sector, we could also take a look at that. So they can help us understand both of those pieces, and then they can also help us recognize where city managers coming from, because there is, they're going to come back with this is what the market is, and the market is broad, I have to assume, right? We're a smaller city with a smaller budget, and they can help us look at that, right? If we are in the 25th percentile of size and budget, they can help us understand based on this is the breadth of what the market looks like given our size and budget. Maybe we're in the 25th to 35th percentile for our ranges, but we could have a strategy that was based in current statistics and information that would help us, I think, be better informed and recognize where we can do things and maybe where we can't, and maybe then look at other things in the areas where we maybe aren't able to be as competitive from a financial standpoint. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yes, if I
Go ahead.
follow up, then, and thank you for that clarification. I think it's very helpful for all of us in understanding how we're moving forward, because I think that is an important perspective. I mean, I think that's really what we're trying to get at, and kind of, I mean, we're trying to do this. I mean, we recognize. I mean, the whole reason we're having this discussion is because we recognize the need to address a challenge that we're facing in attracting and recruiting and retaining employees, much needed employees, and we're struggling to do that. And we have some great employees that deserve to be rewarded and recognized for their work, and we accept and we recognize that we're in competition. I mean, those great employees have potential offers out there that are better than what we're offering now, and so that's why we're having this discussion. We know that we need to do better, right? And but I think what Councilmember Murray points out is, I mean, we're taking an educated guess. It sounds like, kind of. I mean, we're doing the best based on the information we have and we're able to collect. We're giving our best idea of what we think we're going to be able to do to be able to attract and retain our star employees, right? And I think what Councilmember Murray, if I'm understanding correctly, is pointing out is, yes, this is a good first step and good information, but having a professional who understands gives us a more accurate picture and a broader picture on a broader base of employees beyond just this. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding everything, right? Okay, so if that's the case, I can appreciate and understand the need. I guess I would agree that, so on one hand, I would agree that having that professional perspective would be helpful and it would help us be able to come to a better, longer-term professional solution, based on professional input and get us there as we're moving forward. In the meantime, however, I appreciate the need to have that holistic perspective, and I guess I would ask that in my supporting this tonight, because I do believe there's a need and we need to address it, and we need to address it now. And so I will be supporting it with the caveat that I appreciate Councilmember Murray's point and agree that we ought to take that perspective into account moving forward and recognize that we need to make additional adjustments and have that broader holistic view addressed. So I guess that will be my 2 cents on this. Let's do this, but let's come back and take that broader, deeper dive.
Go ahead.
Thank you both for that. I really appreciate it and value the insight into an analysis that can identify recruitment issues and stratification and equity issues. That's always important. We assume that with our analysis with AWC's salary survey data, that it is equitable and useful. But if all cities are making the same mistake, then we're all making the same mistake. I think that when we look at the 50% of employees who are represented by unions, they're getting that advocacy to challenge the market and bring back. So, yeah, your personnel policies state that any employee who wants to be considered for a reclassification has the opportunity to submit that as part of the budgeting process. And so that happens. So we do it every 2 years in the fall, and look where it leads. So, yeah. I did want to share, they were able to find the PowerPoint, so I could show you the impact on your 6-year financial forecast, recognizing this is an older forecast, the last one that you adopted. So if you can bear with me for a moment, pulling this up. It is not a great shot. However, the blue line there at the bottom, that represents the costs attributed to this salary proposal, this ordinance. It's the 125. I had it at 225. Clearly, my memory's going. You can see the impact on the bottom, on the ending fund balance there in 2026. Now, this is using the last adopted financial forecast, so it's got lower ending fund balance than you've actually received in the last couple of years. So this is a very conservatively depiction of the impact of those costs going forward. Now, again, this is just the increase associated with what this ordinance represents. 85% of it being charged to the general fund here. And then as part of the budget, we look at salaries again for you to consider and adopt. If you'd like me to leave that up, I can, or I can email it as well.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
So it passes 5-1.
Thank you all for your comments. I really appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. So next on our agenda is new business. Does anyone have any new business? I just wanted to mention two things. First of all, Bethesda is having a big block party on Saturday, July 16th from 1 to 9 p.m. And so I thought that I would kind of stop by and see what's going on over there at that time. And then in the mail, I received the 2021 Drinking Water Quality Report, and I remember receiving these in the past, and we've always had our water tested, and Mountlake Terrace has really good water, apparently. So just wanted to say, if you got yours in the mail, go ahead and go to the website at the City of Mountlake Terrace and see what your water quality testing results are. And I don't have any other comments, but again, there's no one else. I have been requested to have an executive session this evening. It's for a performance evaluation.
How long would you need?
How long do we need?
15 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Could you please repeat what the subject is?
City manager performance evaluation.
Thank you.
So that, we're not expecting any action. So do we just,
You can go into the Ballinger room, and I'll pause the recording, and if you want to come back at 8:45,
all
it'll be
right.
15 minutes. Okay,
you.
thank you. So we'll go ahead to recess.
Recording stopped.
And I'll keep the audience and staff in the meeting updated if it goes beyond 8:45. And your mic's off. We can't hear you.
We are back, and, my God, what was the wording? No action is to be taken. And so next on our agenda is to adjourn, and I finally saw this. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Okay.